I was having a conversation a few days ago about the current restrictions in place in the UK to reduce the spread of COVID-19. My guess is that many of you have had these conversations too. It's not clear why some places are free to open and operate as normal and other places are not. Though of course these restrictions are one huge balancing act. If everything were to go back to normal all at once, it would be a disaster, and so our government is allowing some sectors to return and others have to wait a little longer before going back to what might be a bit more normal. The conversation I was having involved us trying to work out whether we could, under the current restrictions, engage in some activity or another. And I found myself listening to the others as they tried to find a loophole, a way around the restrictions that were in place for our safety. If we did it this way, we could say that it's this sort of event. And it got me thinking about the importance of not just the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law also. We can obey the law to the letter when it comes to COVID restrictions, but if everyone in our nation is looking for a way to ignore the spirit of the law, to get around it, to find the loophole, if everyone's trying to do that with these rules that are there to keep us safe, we'll soon find that infection rates are on the rise again. And the difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of it was really important to Jesus as well. Though in his case it was often about breaking the letter of the law in order to keep the spirit. Let me read a couple of verses from Mark 2. Verse 18 says, "Now John's disciples and the Pharisees were fasting. Some people came and asked Jesus, 'How is it that John's disciples and the disciples of the Pharisees are fasting, but yours are not?'" And then a bit later, verses 23 to 24. "One Sabbath, Jesus was going through the cornfields, and as his disciples walked along, they began to pick some ears of corn. The Pharisees said to him, 'Look, why are they doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath?'" Again, Jesus and his disciples are living questionable lives. In each case, Jesus' followers are not doing what is expected. John's disciples and the Pharisees have an idea about what they think a good religious teacher should be like and what his followers should be like. And Jesus and his disciples, they don't fit that mould. They don't rigidly stick to the law as it had been understood and interpreted by the teachers of the law in those days. They do not have a strict pattern of fasting. They do not behave like religious people should. And so they get asked questions, and there are opportunities for them to share. This used to happen to me a lot as well. I'd be meeting people for the first time. They'd ask what I did for a job. And when I told them, they'd be surprised. They'd ask me all sorts of questions because I didn't fit the image they had in their minds of what a church leader might look like. I have to confess that as I get older and lose more and more hair from my head, this surprise and these questions are happening less. Everyone in the world around us, our friends, our neighbours, our families, they all have an idea in their minds of what a religious person is and does, of what Christians are like. Too often that image is of Christians who are perceived to be judgmental and unwelcoming and cold. We are called to live lives of love which defy these expectations. You are called to live according to the spirit of the law of God, which is to love him and to love others. And if we do this right, if we live according to that spirit of the law, if we live as loving followers of Christ, defying the expectations of what religious people should be like, if we do all that correctly, like Jesus, we'll get questioned. And we will have opportunities to share the God who comes to us in grace and mercy and love.